America. The year is 1896. America is beginning to take an interest in foreign affairs. McKinley has just been elected president, and somebody called Rockefeller is in the news. The autumn leaves blow down a street in Washington past a small synagogue. And inside, the cantor's son, a small 10-year-old boy, sings to a spellbound congregation the beautiful calm evening. And the heart-rending sadness of the song seems even more sad, for he knows his mother is dying. After his mother's passing, the boy, Asa Jolson, became wild and uncontrollable as he began to search for something to replace the love and affection that he had lost. Show business attracted him like a magnet, and he haunted the theaters as often as he could. Dozens of times he ran away to be found singing on street corners, from the galleries of vaudeville houses, and once even singing with the circus. Many a head shook and predicted with soul-shattering certainty that boy Jolson would never be any good. He loved to sing anytime, any place. When found by his horrified father in a Catholic reformatory, he was learning a lovely melody. People love to hear his lilting notes glide through such favorites as
Shine on, harvest moon, up in the sky. I ain't had no lovin' since January, February, June, or July. No time, ain't no time to stay outdoors and soon. So shine on, harvest moon, for me and my gal.
and
For the moonlight's red tonight along the Wabash. From the fields there comes the breath of new mown hay. Through the sycamores the candle lights are gleaming on the banks of the Wabash far away.
And as the years sped by, something new crept in.
Since first I saw the love light in your eyes, I dreamt the world had naught but joy for me. And even though we drifted far apart, I never dreamed that what I dream of thee. I love you as I've never loved before.
In 1906, Asa, his brother, and a friend formed a song and dance act featuring such numbers as
All on your old grave bonnet with a blue ribbon on it, and it's all above and through the grave.
But they weren't a success. So they broke up the act. Asa had really got show business in his blood by then, so he continued as a solo. Asa Jolson wasn't an easy name to remember, so he changed it to, yes, you're right, Al Jolson. Al wasn't exactly setting the world on fire, and quite often eating was a luxury he just couldn't afford. One night after a not very successful early show, as Al sat miserably with his head in his hands in the dressing room, an old colored man who worked in the theater, seeing how unhappy the singer was, made a suggestion.
Boss, you know, if your skin was black, for women always be laughing and happy.
Huh. You might have something there. Give me some burnt cork from somewhere. I'll try anything once.
When the curtains parted that night, a black-faced figure burst on stage, and with waving white gloves, rolling eyes, and beaming black face, told them...
Some of these days, you're gonna miss me, honey. Some of these days, you're gonna be so lonely. You miss my hugging, you miss my kissing. You'll be so lonely when I'm far away. And when you're lonely, you're for me only. Well, you know, honey, you've always had your way. And when you leave me, you know you're gonna grieve me. You're gonna miss your red hot daddy some of these days.
Lou Dockstetter of the then-famous Dockstetter Minstrels saw the act, and he immediately signed him up for chorus work. As Al said,
I'm not in the big time, but at least I'm in the big theaters.
then came his big chance. One of the singing stars of the show took ill, and Dockstetter apprehensively sent out the relatively inexperienced Jolson to do the feature spot. This was it. He had to be good.
Rosie, you are my posy. You are my heart's bouquet. Come out here in the moonlight. There's something sweet love I wanna say. Your honey boy, I'm waiting. Your
As he sang, Jolson rocked and swayed to the rhythm. And whether imagination or not, the audience seemed to sway with him.
Rosie, my posy sweet.
When he finished, there was a frightening silence. Then he was a tremendous hit, and he could hardly believe it as he took his first bow. It was shortly after this that he was asked to do a Sunday show at Hammerstein's Victoria Theater, notorious for being the toughest audience in New York City, mainly consisting of drunks, gangsters, hard-boiled critics, and also present on this night, but unknown to Al, was Lee Shubert, one of the biggest producers on Broadway. This was a real challenge, for if he flopped here, he was finished. To the first bars of the introduction, he strode to the center of the stage. He ripped off his coat, and he gave them everything he had.
What's that shuffling along? Come on and see them shuffling along. Just take your best gal, your real pal. Go down to the levee. I said the levee. Join that shuffling throng. Hear that music and song. It's simply great, mate. Waiting on the levee, waiting for the Robert E.
Jolson stopped the show. Backstage, as Jolson was leaving, a voice said,
I want you for Broadway.
It was Lee Shubert. Jolson opened on Broadway in 1911 at the Winter Garden Theater with a small part in a show called La Belle Paris. And, of course,
little showers may come your way. They bring us flowers that bloom in a May. So if it's raining, have no regret, because it isn't raining. Rain, you know, it's raining violets, and where you see clouds upon those hills, you soon will see crowds of daffodils. So keep on looking for a bluebird and listening upon his song whenever April showers come along.
But the show was too long, and by the time Al made his appearance, it was so late that the critics and half the audience had gone home. So on his opening night, he was almost unnoticed. However, though Al wanted to leave show business, he felt so disheartened. People told their friends about the black-faced singer, and in a few weeks, his name was up in lights by public demand. For thousands of people were pouring in to see not the star of the show, but Al Jolson. Then in his next show came the accident that was to make him the biggest hit on Broadway. Jolson was suffering from an excruciatingly painful ingrown toenail. And at the end of his number, when the pain became too much for him, he went down on one knee to ease the agony. The song...
Everything seems lovely when you start to roam. The birds are singing the day that you stray, but wait until you are further away. Things won't be so lovely when you're all alone. Here's what you'll keep saying when you're far from home. Mammy, Mammy, the sun shines east, the sun shines west, but I know where the sun shines best. Mammy, my little Mammy, my heartstrings are tangled around Alabama. Mammy, Mammy, I'm coming. I'm sorry that I made you wait. Mammy, Mammy, I'm coming. Oh, Lord, I hope I'm not late. Mammy, Mammy, look at me. Don't you know me? I'm your little baby. I'd walk a million miles for one of your smiles, my Mammy.
And Jolson on one knee brought the whole world to its feet. Show followed show, and success, success, as the nation hailed his songs. And it was about this time he made his first phonograph recordings. This presented difficulties, for the microphone was only in one place, and when Jolson sang, he was everywhere. As he sang, his whole body moved with rhythm and emotion, so the only way to keep him still to record was to put him in a straitjacket. So he wasn't too happy as he made his first records like...
Where did Robinson Crusoe go with Friday on Saturday night? Each Saturday night, they'd go for a roam, and on Sunday morning, they'd come staggered
Then
home.
came 1918, the show Sinbad, and the big thing happened to the world. One night before going on stage, Jolson was approached by a young man with a bundle of music clutched under his arm.
Mr. Jolson, would you have a look at this song I've written, please?
Sorry, son. I'm on stage now. Some other time, huh?
5 songs and 4 encores later, Jolie bowed through the curtains to hear...
Mr. Jolson, could you look at my music now?
You still here? Give it to me. Ladies and gentlemen, I've just been handed a new song. I've never heard it, either of you. So it'll be a new experience for both of us. Here's the music, boys. Let's go.
Swanee, how I love you, my dear old Swanee. I'd give the world to be among the folks in the IX. I even know my mammy's waiting for me, praying for me down by the Swanee. The folks up north will see me no more when I get to that Swanee shore.
Jolie grabbed the young man's arm.
Wow. See, you've really got a terrific number there. Come out and take a bow. What did you say your name was?
George Gershwin, sir.
Adored by the public, Al was in his element. He'd sing till 3 o'clock in the morning, and still they'd scream for more. And no one would leave the theater until Al did. At a concert, he followed the great Enrique Caruso, and undismayed by the tenor's terrific ovation, he raced onto the stage and he laughed.
If you think that's something, you ain't heard nothing yet.
His energy was amazing, and he'd use up 7 shirts a performance. In 1927, Warner Brothers offered him $200,000 to star in a film called The Jazz Singer. This was to be the first talking picture, a doubtful experiment greeted with much pessimism by the movie world, but people fought to get seats for the first night of Warner Brothers' Big Gamble. And on that great night, the audience was in a thrill of excitement as the film unfolded.
But to me is an angel.
And after Al's song, Dirty Hands, for the first time in the world, a voice spoke on the screen.
Wait a minute. You ain't heard nothing yet.
It caused a sensation, and the world hailed Al and talkies, and Jolie left Broadway for Hollywood. Next came The Singing Fool, which featured such numbers as...
I'm sitting on top of the world. I'm rolling along, just rolling along. And I'm quitting the blues of the world. I'm singing a song, just singing a song. Bloody hallelujah, I just told the parson if I get ready to call. Just like Humpty Dumpty, I'm ready to fall. And I'm sitting on top of the world. I'm rolling along, just rolling along. Listen to me while I tell ya of the Spaniard that blighted my life. La 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 la. There's a rainbow around my shoulder and a sky of blue above. All the sunshine bright, the world's all right, 'cause I'm in love. There's a rainbow around my shoulder, and it fits me like a glove. Let it blow and a storm, I'll be warm, 'cause I'm in love, hallelujah, how the folks will stare when they see that diamond solitaire. My little baby is going away. Yes, sir, there's a rainbow around my shoulder and a sky of blue above, and I'm shouting so the world will know that I'm in love.
In the film, Al acted as a vocalist who adored his baby son. But towards the end of the film, tragedy struck. His little son died, and on the same night, his heart in tatters, he felt he just didn't want to go on to sing the main number in his show.
When there are gray skies, I don't mind the gray skies. You make them blue, sunny boy. Friends may forsake me. Let them all forsake me. I'll still have you, sunny boy. You're sent from heaven, and I know your worth. You've made a heaven for me right here on earth. And the angels, they grew lonely. They took you because they were lonely. Now I'm lonely too, sonny boy.
A nation wept. And for the first time in the world, 1 million phonograph records were sold of one song. Al fell in love the same way he did everything else, like a tornado. Seeing beautiful Ruby Keeler dancing in a nightclub, he fell madly in love. The story is told that on the opening night of her first big Broadway show, Al flew 3,000 miles to be there. But Ruby didn't know this, and she was so keyed up with nervous tension without him to give her confidence that at the start of her dance on an extremely high platform, she became dizzy, and she would have fallen. But suddenly a figure rose in the audience and a voice sang,
honeymoon is shining down. We can make a day with us and round. Oh, Liza, remember the day when you belonged to me, all the clouds roll away.
Ruby's heart leapt, and she danced as never before. The whirlwind courtship had been a success, and many years of happy marriage followed. Al made film after film, and in 1940 he thought it was time he returned to Broadway. The show, Hold On to Your Hats, was his idea, and most of the $82,000 invested in it was his also. It had been 10 years since he'd been on the stage, and Al was worried about how he'd be received. As he stood in the wings, too nervous to go on, the curtain suddenly parted, and he stood with bowed head at the footlights, motionless. Then a tide of applause swept over him, welcoming him back. And there were tears in his eyes as he sang,
California, here I come, right back to where I started from, where flowers bloom in the spring. Each morning at dawn and birdie singing everything. A sonic kiss, miss, and don't be late. That's why I can hardly wait. Open up your the Golden Gate, California, here I come.
The show was a smash hit, but it was to be Al's last appearance on Broadway, for slowly radio had been building new and younger stars. Names such as Eddie Cantor, Rudy Valley, Dick Powell, and the young man who'd started out with Paul Whiteman's band, Bing Crosby, were taking the spotlight. The Jolson star had lost its luster, and no more crowds to cheer him. Al stepped down. Scenes in noisy record shops where Jolson had been king changed as the years flew past, and a new generation bought records of new ideas.
Oh, Frankie sings this.
I like Bing singing it. He's peachy.
What's in this pile? Let's see. Al Jolson, is it? What's he do?
He used to sing or something, I think. I've heard Mom talk about him.
I'll put it with the antiques, Josie, and let's hear the new Benny Goodman.
And the memory of a name that had thrilled millions was growing dim. Then, Sunday, the 7th of December, 1941, Pearl Harbor. America was at war, and a man, a little gray at the temples, packed his bags and was the first overseas to entertain the troops. It must have been with mixed feelings of uncertainty. He, no longer a name artist, stood before thousands of troops and said,
A friend of mine, Irving Berlin, has written a wonderful new song about something that's close to the minds of every man here. I hope you like it. Music, maestro. I'm dreaming of a white Christmas, just like the ones I used to know, where the treetops glisten and the children listen to hear the sleigh bells in the snow. I'm dreaming of a white Christmas with every Christmas card I write. May our days be merry and bright, and may all your Christmases be white.
But the boys didn't think he was a has-been, no matter what they thought at home, and they cheered as before their eyes a legend came to life.
Rockabye, your baby, well, that Dixie melody. When you croon a tune from the heart of Dixie. Just hang that cradle, mammy of mine, right on that Mason Dixon line, and swing it from Virginia to Tennessee, with all the soul that's in ya. Weep no more, my lady, mammy, sing it again for me. And oh, Black George, just as though you had me on your knee. I mean, baby, kisses I'll deliver if you will only sing that Swanee River rockabye. You rockabye, baby, with a Dixie melody. Low April showers upon your way. they bring the flowers that bloom in May. So if it's raining, have no regret.
But the tempo took its toll, and though old Jolie sang his way into the hearts of soldiers around the world, while entertaining troops in Sicily, he contracted pneumonia and malaria. And in his fight for life, operations left him with his voice 2 keys lower. Not that he felt anyone at home cared what happened to an old man of 60. However, Al wasn't completely forgotten, for a journalist called Skalski was trying hard to convince Columbia Pictures to make a film of his life story. Columbia finally agreed, and Larry Parks was chosen to act the part of Jolson. But the warm voice to sell the songs could only be Al. And so the happiest man alive, he came back as great as ever to sing on the soundtrack. And again he sold records over the million, such as
Oh, how we danced on the night we were wed. We fought our true love. The word wasn't said. The world wasn't a boon. There were stars in the skies, except for the few that were there in your eyes. Dear, as I held you so close in my arms, angels were singing a hymn to your charms, to hearts gently beating were murmuring low, darling, I love you so. The night seemed to fade, it'll blossoming dawn. The sun shone anew, but the dance lingered on. Could we but relive that sweet moment sublime, where to find that our love is unaltered by time.
Miles of cues all over the world paid tribute to the great old man of show business, and the film became one of the 4 greatest box office draws in history. Then came Jolson Sings Again, another success. Jolson was king again, and age hadn't seemed to slow down his tremendous showmanship as he traveled all over the country. Chicago.
Rock-a-bye. Yeah, baby. Well, who did you expect? Larry Parks? Baby face, you got the cutest little baby face. There's not another one could take your place. Baby face, my poor heart is jumping. You should have thought it's something, baby face. I'm up in heaven when I'm in your fond embrace. I didn't need a shop 'cause I just fell in love with your pretty baby face.
San Francisco.
Chinatown, my Chinatown, where the lights are low. I said no other land, drifting to and fro. Dreamy Chinatown, where the eyes are brown. I seem light and light right in dreamy Chinatown.
Hold 'em.
When the red robin comes bobbing along, yapping on my sobbing when he starts throbbing his old sweet song. Ah, wake up, you sleepyhead, get up, get out of bed, cheer up, the sun is red. Live, laugh and be happy. What if I be blue? Now I'm walking through fields. Applause, remake listen, but still I listen for hours and hours. I'm just a kid again, do what I did again, singing a song. When the red robin comes bobbing along.
The Korean War began in 1950. And shortly after, an old man again packed his bags and was the first to entertain the troops in Korea. And to grateful servicemen from all over the world, he performed in such places as Seoul.
Come on here, Alexander's ragtime band. Come on here, it's the best band in the land. They can play a bugle call like you never heard before. So natural I don't want to go to war. That's just the bestest band. What am I, Honeyland? Come on along, let me take you by the hand. Up to the man, the mighty man, the leader of the band. And if you cannot get a Swanee River, play it in ragtime. Come on here, Alexander's ragtime band.
Hanman John.
Are you gonna keep on down on the farm after that seen Paris? Are you gonna keep on away from Broadway, jazzing around in on the town? Are you gonna keep on away from home? That's a mystery. They'll never wanna see a record of plow. And who the deuce can party through a cow? Are you gonna keep on down on the farm?
You, a wonderful audience, you made me love you.
You made me love you. I didn't want to do it. You made me want you. And all the time you knew it. I guess you always knew it. You made me happy sometimes. And you made me sad. But there were times, baby.
Are you dog?
You made me sigh for. I didn't want to tell you. I wanna love that's true. Yes, I do. Did I do? You know I do. Give me what I sigh for. You know you got the kind of kisses that I die for. You know you made me love you.
The nation loved him. And then on October 23rd, 1950, while playing cards with his wife and friends in a San Francisco hotel, Al said,
I don't feel so well. I think I'll lay down.
Here, lay on the sofa, Jolie.
I think I will.
Was it imagination, or did the wind sound a little sad as it blew down the street outside the hotel? And a few blocks away in a crowded bar... Ladies and gentlemen, we interrupt this program to give you the saddest news that show business could have. 10 minutes ago, in a San Francisco hotel, the world's greatest entertainer passed away. His name was Al Jolson. In the 64 years he lived with us, he brought more music and laughter to the world than we could ever repay. Whether to a society party or children in a hospital, he sang from his heart, and the applause that came back came from theirs. He's gone to his greatest audience. On behalf of the world that loved you, goodbye, Al.
He was a great guy.
I feel I want to cry. It's a sad night. He gave his money and his voice to whoever needed it. I think I'll go home.
Yeah, me too. I don't feel like anything else now.
Yes, Al was dead, but he'd left a treasure of melodies and feeling that would never die.
That you should dream that Shakespeare away from you, no words can tell how sad it makes me. Gives me toddy and then do it all that again. Watch for the mail, I'll never fail. If you don't get a letter, then you'll know I'm in jail. Tootsie, goodbye. Goodbye, Toddy, goodbye. Give my regards to Broadway. Remember me to Harrow Square. Tell all the gang on 42nd Street that I will soon be there. Whisper of how I'm yearning to mingle with the old-time throng. Give my regards to old Broadway and say that I'll be there ere long. I'm looking over a four-leaf clover I overlooked before. First is in sunshine, the second is rain. Third is the roses that grow in the lane. No need explaining. The one remaining is somebody I adore. I'm looking over the four-leaf clover that I overlooked before.